I never thought life could be this cruel. There I was, sitting at my small, lonely desk in the corner of the office. My hands trembled as I tried to type, but my heart was too heavy. Across the room, laughing loudly, was the man I feared most, Daniel. Yes, that Daniel. My childhood bully. The one who used to trip me in the school hallways. The one who called me worthless in front of the whole class. And now, fate had made him my boss. Every morning, as soon as I walked into the office, his cold eyes followed me. He would smirk, like he enjoyed every second of my pain. "Still slow as ever, huh?" he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My cheeks burned with shame. People chuckled behind their screens, but no one dared to speak up. I swallowed my tears, forcing a fake smile. But deep inside, I felt small, like I was still that scared little boy in the playground. What Daniel didn't know, though, was that life had taught me to stay quiet and prepare for my moment. My heart whispered, "Endure. Your time is coming." "Can you even read that report properly, or do I need to draw pictures for you?" Daniel shouted across the office. His voice was sharp like a knife. It sliced through my chest and left me breathless. My hands shook as I held the report. I felt my face turn red, my eyes clouding with tears. The whole office froze for a moment. Then some people covered their smiles, pretending not to laugh. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me whole. But I couldn't move. I just stood there, like a statue of shame. Daniel swaggered toward me, snatched the report from my hands, and held it up for everyone to see. "What is this mess? Even a child could do better," he mocked. His laughter filled the room, loud and cruel. I clenched my fists under the table, nails digging into my palms. Painful, but it kept me from crying. I stared at the window behind him, sunlight pouring in, and thought of my late father's words. Silent rivers run deep. Deep down, I was gathering my strength, like a storm waiting to explode. Daniel had no idea. His world was about to change. Daniel tossed the torn report onto my desk. Pieces of paper floated down like dead leaves. "You're useless," he spat, and turned away, laughing again with the others. My eyes drifted to my bag under the desk. My hands moved slowly, carefully, as I reached for the file I had kept hidden for weeks. A simple folder, plain, old, dusty, but inside it, everything was waiting. Every signature, every proof, every truth. I held the folder on my lap, fingers trembling. My heart pounded so loudly I thought the whole office could hear it. Daniel didn't notice. He was too busy showing off, barking orders to people who feared him like a king on a throne. But this folder, this paper, held his fall. It carried the secret he never wanted the world to know. A small smile crept onto my face, not out of pride but out of quiet strength. I could feel the tears behind my eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. This time they were from hope. The moment had come. I would not let this day end without changing my life forever. I took a deep breath. It's time. As I held the folder tight, memories from my childhood came rushing back, cutting deeper than any knife. I could still hear Daniel's cruel laughter from the schoolyard, feel the sharp sting of his insults. "You will never be anything," he used to say. Now, here I was, years later, still under his shadow, still hearing those same words, only louder, only sharper. But something was different this time. This folder in my hands was not just paper. It was my shield. It was my voice, finally ready to be heard after years of silent suffering. Daniel strutted past my desk once more. He knocked over my coffee on purpose, spilling it across my keyboard. "Oops," he smirked, not even bothering to help. The warm coffee soaked into my papers, but I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes on the folder. I didn't even wipe the desk. Inside me, a quiet fire burned stronger than ever. I whispered to myself, so low only my heart could hear, "This ends today." The office kept buzzing, but I felt only my heartbeat, fast, loud, alive. Today was no longer about surviving. Today was about ending the nightmare. Daniel's loud voice filled the air again. "Gather around, everyone. Let's teach him a lesson in real work," he called out, clapping his hands mockingly. The whole office gathered near my desk. My heart pounded harder as they formed a tight circle around me. I felt trapped, like a small bird cornered by wolves. Daniel stood tall in front of me, holding a fake grin. "Show them your report," he ordered, knowing it was already torn and ruined. Slowly, I picked up the folder. Not the broken report, but the folder. My hands trembled, but my eyes stayed firm. I raised it high for everyone to see. "Not the report, Daniel," I said softly, my voice shaking, but brave. "This." The office fell quiet. Daniel's smirk faded just a little. "What's that supposed to be?" he snapped, reaching to grab it from my hands. But I held it tight. "It's the truth," I replied. "Everything about you. Everything you've hidden." Gasps filled the room. Daniel's face turned pale for the first time. The quiet fire in my chest turned into a storm. No more fear, no more running. The beginning of the end had arrived. The air in the office turned cold. You could hear nothing but the sound of my heartbeat, loud and clear. Daniel's hand hovered in the air, unsure whether to grab the folder or back away. His eyes flickered between my steady gaze and the folder I held like a weapon. "What nonsense are you talking about?" he barked, but there was a crack in his voice. His confidence began to crumble like dry leaves in the wind. I opened the folder slowly. Page after page, I held up documents, each one heavy with truth. Misused company funds, fake promotions, lies that lifted him while stepping on others. "Everything is here," I said softly but firmly. "You built your empire by crushing people like me. But not anymore." Whispers spread through the office like wildfire. Co-workers who once laughed at me now looked at Daniel with wide, fearful eyes. Daniel tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in his throat. His face turned red, then pale. "You're finished," I whispered, loud enough for him and everyone to hear. For the first time, I saw fear in the eyes of the man who had once made me feel so small. For the first time since I started working there, the office was dead silent. No phones rang, no keyboards clicked. Even the ticking clock on the wall felt louder than before. Everyone's eyes were glued to me, the quiet worker they had ignored, now standing tall with truth in his hands. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. His usual sharp tongue was frozen. His eyes darted left and right, looking for support, but no one stepped forward to defend him. I spread the papers across my desk one by one. Each page told a painful story, stories of people he had stepped on, lied to, and ruined, just to rise higher. I was not the only one he had hurt. I was simply the last. Tears filled my eyes, but I did not wipe them away. Let them see. Let them see the pain, the years of silence, and the fire now burning in my chest. Daniel stepped back, bumping into a chair behind him. His fake confidence crumbled like old paper. In that moment, I understood something powerful. Silence can be loud. And my silence had just turned into a roar. Daniel tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "You think this will ruin me?" he forced out, waving his hand toward the papers. But his voice no longer carried power. It shook like a tree bending in the wind. The people who once followed his every word now looked at him with doubt, even fear. One brave coworker stepped forward. "I remember this," she said softly, pointing to a document. "You fired my brother over this fake report." Her voice trembled and tears filled her eyes. Another man raised his hand, speaking in a tight voice. "You cut my pay while you took bonuses. I thought it was normal, but now I see." The room began to stir. One by one, voices rose from the crowd. Small, soft voices, voices that had been silenced for too long. Daniel's face turned white as a sheet. His hands shook at his sides. His kingdom, built on fear and lies, was crumbling fast. I stood taller, though my knees felt weak. The weight of the moment pressed down on me, but I did not fall. For the first time, I wasn't alone. The storm had begun, and it was not stopping. Daniel's eyes darted across the room, wild and desperate. "Stop this nonsense," he shouted. "You're all fools to believe him." But no one listened anymore. The quiet workers, the ones he had mocked and crushed, now stood together. There was strength in their eyes and fire in their hearts. Years of pain had finally boiled over. I took a step closer to Daniel, holding the final paper in my hand. It was the most important one, proof of his biggest lie, proof that could destroy him fully. His breath quickened as he saw it. "Where did you get that?" he whispered, his voice small like a scared child. I looked him straight in the eyes. "You left too many broken people behind, Daniel," I answered. "And broken people remember." Tears blurred my vision, but I held strong. I wanted him to see my pain. I wanted him to feel every moment of fear I had lived through. The walls he had built around himself began to fall brick by brick. His power was slipping like sand between his fingers. For the first time, Daniel understood. The people he thought were weak had become unbreakable, and I was leading them. Daniel's legs buckled. He gripped the edge of my desk like it was the only thing holding him up. His voice cracked, but he tried to act strong. This is fake," he muttered. "He's making it all up." But no one believed him anymore. I turned to the crowd. "You all know what kind of man he is. You've seen it, felt it, lived it." My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. "This isn't about revenge. It's about truth." I held the final document up, a signed statement from the company's accountant, proving Daniel had taken bonuses from layoffs he caused. Murmurs filled the room. People's eyes widened. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others shook their heads, tears already forming. Daniel's hands trembled. He looked at the paper like it was a ghost from his past. One woman gasped and whispered, "He fired my husband during that time." Daniel's mask shattered completely. I looked at him, the man who once made my childhood a nightmare. And now, in front of everyone, he stood stripped of power. His last lie had been told, and it wasn't enough to save him. As the papers sat on my desk, exposed for all to see, something unexpected happened. I cried. Not the kind of tears that fall from joy or revenge. These were deep, old tears. Tears from years ago, from when I sat alone on the school bus after Daniel called me names in front of everyone. From the day I came home and told my mother I didn't want to go back to school. From every job I took trying to be invisible just to avoid men like him. And now, here I stood, not invisible anymore. Daniel fell into his chair, pale and speechless. He looked so small now, so weak. "I never wanted this," I said, wiping my eyes. "I only ever wanted peace. But people like you don't understand peace until they feel the pain they caused." Some co-workers began to cry too, not for Daniel, but for themselves, for what they had suffered in silence, for what they had seen but were too afraid to speak up about. My tears weren't weakness. They were strength, poured out at last. I didn't plan this moment, but maybe life had planned it for me, and it was beautiful. Just as the room sat still, a loud ding echoed. It was my phone, a message. I glanced down. It was from the company's legal department. I had sent them the file that morning, before the meeting. I didn't know if they'd respond, but they had. "We've reviewed the evidence. Please do not leave. Internal Affairs is on the way. HR compliance." I lifted my head. My hands shook again, but not from fear. I looked straight at Daniel. "They're coming." His eyes widened. "Who?" "People who don't look away," I said. He jumped to his feet. "You can't do this. You think you're the hero? You're nothing." But no one moved to stop me. No one laughed. No one clapped for him. They just watched, silent and still. Daniel's words fell to the floor like broken glass. I sat back down at my desk, calm, peaceful, because finally, after all the pain and all the waiting, I wasn't the one running anymore, and he wasn't the one in charge. The office door creaked open. 2 people in black suits stepped inside holding files. Their faces were serious, sharp, like they already knew the truth. Daniel's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked like a man watching his own ship sink, slowly, painfully. The room froze. One of the officers spoke clearly. "We are here for Mr. Daniel, regarding serious claims of fraud, harassment, and abuse of power." Daniel stuttered. "There's been a mistake." But I stood up, my hand still shaking, and handed them the folder. "No mistake," I said softly. "It's all here." The officer flipped through the papers, nodding slowly. "Thank you," he said, looking straight into my eyes, not with pity but respect. Daniel's legs wobbled. His proud chest, once puffed with power, collapsed under invisible weight. Co-workers moved aside as the officers stepped closer to him. No one spoke. No one defended him. The same people who once followed him now stood in silent relief. Tears filled my eyes, but this time, they were tears of quiet victory. After all the pain, I was finally breathing free air. They took Daniel by the arms. He tried to resist, but his strength was gone. His voice cracked like an old mirror. "You can't do this to me," he screamed. But they could, and they did. They led him toward the door. His once proud steps were now shaky and small. I watched him go, not with hatred but with a heavy heart. Because deep inside I knew something important. This wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who had suffered quietly, like me. About every tear I cried alone at night. Every morning I forced myself to come to this office with a fake smile. The officers paused at the door, letting Daniel take one final look at the office. He glanced at me, eyes filled with fear and regret. He wanted to say something, but no words came. Maybe there were no words left. The door closed behind him, and the office remained still. No cheers, no claps, just silent tears. Mine. Theirs. A quiet moment of deep release. I sat back at my desk, feeling the weight lift from my chest. Finally, my nightmare had ended. Finally, my quiet strength had won. The moment Daniel left, a heavy silence filled the room. But it wasn't the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of freedom. People looked at each other, then at me. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. For the first time, they saw me not as the quiet worker in the corner, but as the person who stood up when no one else could. Tears slid down my cheeks, warm and steady. I didn't wipe them away. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of release. A coworker stepped closer and placed a hand on my shoulder. Her eyes were glassy, filled with her own pain but also respect. "Thank you," she whispered. Others followed. Simple words, soft voices. But every single "thank you" felt like a stone lifted from my heart. I didn't need loud cheers. I didn't need applause. This quiet moment of shared freedom was louder than anything. Daniel's power was gone. His shadow no longer covered us. The office, once dark with fear, felt brighter, not because of lights, but because of hope. And I finally felt at peace, truly free. After Daniel was taken away, the room stayed quiet for a long time, not a cold silence like before. This silence was warm, gentle, almost like the whole office was breathing freely for the first time. I stood there, still frozen at my desk, my heart pounding in my chest. All the pain I had carried for years, the pain of childhood bullying, the shame of daily humiliation, the silent tears at home, it all sat heavy in my chest. But slowly, I felt it loosen, like a rope being untied, knot by knot. My eyes filled again with tears, but these tears were different. These tears were for every moment I thought I wasn't enough. For every day I believed I had no power. A coworker softly said, We should have stood up sooner. Another one added, "You gave us courage." I could not speak. My throat was too tight. But in my heart I forgave them. I forgave myself. Because in this moment I realized something powerful. It's not about how long you suffer. It's about how you rise when the time comes. And today, I had risen. The room slowly filled with quiet voices. Not fear, not gossip, but hope. People shared their stories. One by one they spoke about the years of pain Daniel had caused. His cruelty wasn't just aimed at me, it had reached so many. But today, his power ended. I felt a deep ache in my chest. Not because of sadness anymore, but because of relief. For the first time I could breathe deeply without fear of his shadow over me. "You taught us to be brave," said an older man from across the room. His eyes were red, his voice shaking. "You showed us what quiet strength looks like." I smiled gently, though tears blurred my vision. I never wanted to be a hero. I only wanted to survive. But today, something bigger had happened. My small, quiet fight had grown into something that changed everyone. My hands, once weak and shaking, now felt strong. Daniel's reign was over, the storm had passed, and I stood in the sunlight of my own courage. In that moment, I felt something I had never felt before in my life. I felt truly free. As I sat back at my desk, the sun poured through the window warmer than ever before. The fear was gone. The pain was still there, but it was softer now, like an old scar that no longer hurt. A coworker gently placed a cup of coffee on my desk. "Fresh start," she said softly. I held the cup in my hands, feeling its warmth, not just from the drink, but from the kindness, from the new life ahead. I looked around the room and saw something beautiful. People who had once felt broken now stood taller. They smiled. They breathed easier. Daniel's shadow was gone, and in its place, there was light. As I close this chapter of my life, I look into the camera. Yes, you, my dear viewers. If this story touched your heart, if you felt even a drop of these tears, please, don't just watch in silence. Tap that like button to let this story reach more hearts. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts, your tears, or your strength. And if you want more stories that heal, hurt, and heal again, subscribe to this channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Together, let's keep rising.